But now it's on to the spring games here on Saturday. I could, you always got to be careful what you take away from these spring games. I see your guys' comments and reactions. Spring games, what in the hell do they mean? Why are you covering these things? Because we got nothing else to cover this time of year. That's the honest truth. But I think there are some things you could take away from it. And more than anything, you never look at a spring game or a spring game performance and say, all right, this guy's going to win this job. This guy has no shot. That's not the way it works. That's not the way I look at it. For me, it's more about the eye test and how things are going. Everything you hear leading up into camp. How's that going to lead into the summer? And will that transition into fall camp? So take everything with a grain of salt. But let's start in Baton Rouge, where, of course, front and center this quarterback competition. And just based on what we saw on Saturday, based on what we were being told leading up to it, I think Walker Howard, the true freshman, has got a bright future ahead of him. But clear, he's the odd man out here. I think this is a three-man race. Jaden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer. Miles Brennan, seems like he's going into his 9th year there in Baton Rouge. And Garrett Nutsmeyer. Now, Nutsmeyer is the one that we talked about just last week, making a move, very consistent. This is not a two-man race. It's a three-man race. And that continued to be the case here in the spring game, in my opinion. Jaden Daniels got the first snap of the game. Miles Brennan came out second. But the player at the quarterback position for LSU that impressed me the most, Garrett Nutsmeyer, first 3 possessions, all scoring drives, a field goal drive, which went down into the red zone, and then touchdown. Garrett Nutsmeyer I just thought the most complete quarterback of the 4 that we saw on the field on Saturday in Baton Rouge. And I'm starting to think there's a real chance that Garrett Nutsmeyer is going to be the guy. Now, you got to think Jaden Daniels has got a real shot with all his experience at Arizona State. And certainly this coaching staff sees something in him. They would not have brought him in to kind of rock his boat if they were just planning on sitting him. But he looked shaky. I mean, he looked the most mobile. And that's something we're going to have to consider because the LSU offensive line still very much a work in progress. We got first look at Will Campbell, the outstanding true freshman at left tackle. But the fact that you're starting a true freshman gives you an indication of how shaky this offensive line could be. Multiple transfers trying to work them in. And at times, we even had Miles Brennan had to switch units because the offensive line could not protect him. That played a factor. So if the offensive line really is a big issue, are we going to roll out inexperienced Garrett Nutsmeyer? Maybe not. Maybe we put out the more experienced Jaden Daniels who can run when plays break down, when the protection's not there. But Miles Brennan also, he looked solid in this game. It took him a little while to get going, but once he started getting in a rhythm, some really great throws. One to Brian Thomas was particularly impressive. I thought of the 3 guys, Jaden Daniels was the least impressive throwing the ball, but the most impressive running the ball. And I would probably give the most impressive passing the ball to Garrett Nutsmeyer with a mix of his ability to run. So he's a little bit of all of them. And you got to think that I believe Miles Brennan's got 1 year of eligibility. Jaden Daniels, I think, has 2, even though he played 3 years at Arizona State. So it's my understanding Jaden Daniels is kind of thinking 1 year into the NFL. But if it's a tie between 2 players that have 1 to 2 years of eligibility and Garrett Nutsmeyer, who's got 4 years of eligibility, I know LSU, we've always got the win now mentality, but I got to think, again, I think the coaching staff is going to lean towards a player that they can build around. It's going to have multiple seasons of eligibility. So that's just something to consider. I think late in the game, Jaden Daniels started to come on. He had a couple nice passes, including a touchdown. He had a touchdown pass to Jack Besh, who he had a hell of a game. Love to see Besh continuing that momentum he had from his freshman year. Malik Neighbors, the receiver. I mean, LSU seems to be kind of loaded with the first team at receiver. But one position that maybe even more loaded for the LSU Tigers, and that's running back. And that's saying something, considering the fact that we've got issues on offensive line. Armani Goodwin, he was incredible. He's got a little Clyde's Allaire to him. Smaller, tougher, physical, but explosive running back. He had perhaps the most impressive day of any player on the field. He was a weapon in the passing game, scoring touchdowns out here. Trey Bradford looked solid, had a 37-yard rush in the ball game. And even John Emery, a guy we've been waiting to see, he flashed a little bit. So LSU should be very deep at the running back position. And that's before we even get to Josh Williams, who I believe he scored multiple touchdowns. So, again, LSU looks to be loaded at running back. The offensive line, of course, is going to be the big question mark, and this quarterback competition going into training camp. But my money right now, after what we've seen on Saturday, what I heard in camp, I think Garrett Nutsmeyer is going to be your starting quarterback for LSU. But certainly things could change. He's got to carry over that momentum into training camp. Jaden Daniels, Miles Brennan certainly aren't going away. So this is going to be a race that probably bleeds into right before the season opener there against Florida State in New Orleans. So that's certainly going to be one of the biggest storylines in the SEC entering fall camp. And exiting the spring, here's what Brian Kelly had to hit on: a number of things. The quarterback competition, of course, he's going to get asked about that, on Garrett Nutsmeyer in particular, and on the offensive line. I mean, he really harps on this unit. He knew when he took the job, this is going to be the position group they had to attack, and they have, and the progress that group has made. Let's kick it over to Brian Kelly.
How important was it to get the run game established the way you guys did? Do you feel like that's going to be part of your team's identity?
Yeah, so when we came, in here, I think we all knew that one of the areas that was a must was that if you're going to have any success, you have to strengthen the offensive line here. And so it's been a point of emphasis, and we've got to run the football. If you're going to win the SEC West, you have to be able to you got to really run the football. And today's not, we're not here to bang the drum and say we've arrived, but there had to be some semblance of we've made progress in that end, and I think we can say that we did, and we emphasized it, and now we can go and look at what are the things that we do well, and what do we need to do better, and so I think that that's the exam, right? What did we learn from the spring? What did we do well, and what can we do better?
How do you balance Nutsmeyer being a young guy and you want him to maybe correct things in his game as he grows with being a talented quarterback and going out there and throwing well?
Don't overcoach it. I mean, you can get it can be paralysis by analysis, right? You start to overcoach that, and then he starts to pull back a little bit, and then you lose a really good quarterback too. So you've got to be careful there. I think you try to coach him on the things that matter the most, and that is taking great care of the football. I mean, he's going to make some mistakes. I make mistakes. I know you don't. I mean, but everybody else does. And I don't mean that in any other way. I'm just making the point that he's going to make mistakes. And so it's just one of those things that I think you got to be careful with a guy like that that's really talented, that you don't try to overcoach that. And make sure he takes care of the football. If he does that, if he makes a mistake here or there with the talent that he has, just go play football. But by and large, I thought the offensive line got better as the game went on. And the one thing that y'all want to know about is, we didn't clear up anything with the quarterback today. We probably made it even more difficult. I mean, Brennan was good today, right? I mean, he does really good things with the football. He knows the offense. He's smart. He takes care of it. Nutsmeyer, we talked about Nutsmeyer's athletic ability, his arm strength. Daniels is really, really fast, and Walker's got one of the strongest arms on the team. So I don't know if we cleared up anything there, and we know defensively that front is really, really good. The safeties tackled so much better today. So that's kind of a synopsis. Are we done? That was pretty good, wasn't it? I don't know how many wins that equals, but that makes us more competitive.